Okay, you guys, so it has been a minute since I've done a sit down video. As you can see, the background's different because I moved. I still haven't figured out the filming space. But, anyways, that's besides the point. I have a special video for you guys today, something that has been requested, and it is geared towards my newer adjusters.
You in the past, I'm in the future. You mad, they don't salute you.
Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new here, my name is Keela Trishan, and I make videos on lifestyle, insurance, and mental health. I also do vlogs, day in the life in the insurance industry, day in the life with a toddler, all the things. So if that's something that interests you, go on ahead and click that subscribe button below. Be sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back, and thank you for your support. All right, so I asked on my last video if there were some topics that you guys would want me to touch on as I'm trying to figure out content moving forward. And a couple of you guys did mention that you want to have some questions that you should ask during claims investigation. So I put together just like a few basic questions that you should ask on your claims. This is specifically for homeowner claims because that's what I do right now. It can be tough for new adjusters to just kind of know what direction they need to like steer their investigation. But basically, like the main thing that you want to do as an adjuster is figure out the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So as long as you can answer those questions and as long as anybody that is reviewing your file can answer those questions, you're typically in good shape. So today I'm going to talk about the three kind of most common homeowner claims. That's going to be water claims, fire claims, and theft. So if you are interested in just kind of having some starter questions to ask when you are getting your new claims, definitely go on ahead and stay tuned. Okay, so jumping right in, I'm going to start with water, but before I even go into those questions, the first thing that you want to do on any claim is ask your customer to walk you through what happened in their own words. This is because usually when you get the claim, you're going to have like a brief overview of what happened. Like it'll say, water leak or whatever. You need to get down to the bottom of what exactly happened, and the best person to ask is your customer. Have them walk you through just kind of everything. Have them start from, when they discovered it, if there was anything leading up to it, and then what they found and all that good stuff. With that said, let's get into the first question that you want to ask when you have a water loss after they told you what happened. So I typically will ask them what leaked and how it was stopped. This a lot of times will be answered during the overview, like conversation about what they saw. So I want to know if there's water damage. Was it was it a supply line that leaked? Was it a washing machine that overflowed? Whatever. So you want to get that information and capture it. And then you also want to find out if it was stopped and when it was stopped. So there's a big difference between, someone, hearing water rushing and they were home. So let's say it was a washing machine overflow. They heard the water, they were there, so they were able to stop it within 10 minutes. Then you have situations where someone may have been at work all day and they come home and, the carpet is soaked. That means that leak was going on for however long. So you want to kind of capture that information, kind of find out the duration, and then also find out what they did to stop it. Did they call a plumber? Did they stop it themselves? Some people will just go and turn the water off to their home until they figure out what was leaking, or, they figure out how to get it fixed, things like that. So you want to make sure that they understand if it hasn't stopped, they need to try to stop it because their goal as the insured is to mitigate damages. This says this in the policy. So they need to mitigate, meaning they need to stop further damage from occurring. So that's going to be the first question that you want to ask. The second question that I usually will ask in a water claim is what damage have you seen and how many rooms? So with water, it travels. So you could have a leak that started in the kitchen and it may have only just affected the kitchen, but it could also affect surrounding rooms if it sat for long enough. So you want to ask them what materials. So typically if they say, oh, my floor, is damaged and, the walls are damaged. Okay, what type of flooring do you have? The way I'm going to handle, water damaging like hardwood floor is going to be different than how I'll handle damage from like a vinyl flooring or whatever. So you want to find out what type of materials, because also if that flooring is continuous, depending on the material, you may have to go into other rooms that are unaffected, like to replace, if coverage is afforded. So find out like approximately how many rooms and what damage they've seen. I also will ask them, the third question I'll ask them is, have you called out anyone to help you with mitigation? So in some cases, you have customers that are pretty proactive and they'll call a water mitigation vendor to come out and assist them with, getting materials dry and like restoring their property. In some cases, you have people that just simply don't know what to do, and that's why they're calling the insurance company. So this will help me determine, okay, if no one has been called, how long has this been going on? Can I get someone out there? And if they have called someone, then I try to capture that company's information so I can reach out and find out what they've seen. Do they have pictures, anything like that? It's usually like in our industry, most customers aren't going to know like the jargon that we use. So I find it helpful to talk to an expert in the industry because we're talking the same language. So if you have that information from the customer, if they have called somebody in, get their information. If not, then this will be kind of like a gateway to you offering the insurance company's vendors to assist them with like restoring their home. Fourth question I'm going to ask in a water claim is, are any of your personal belongings affected? So it's important as an adjuster to think about the big picture. Just because there was damage to the dwelling doesn't mean that other things weren't damaged. So I guess like the most common thing that I've seen is like with a water claim, sometimes people have their electronics on the floor, you know, like maybe a laptop or something like that, and that may have gotten damaged by water. So you want to make sure that you're capturing all this information on that first call, so you're not having to go back and forth and kind of like do a backwards investigation. I try to get that information up front, so then that lets me know, do I need to get a vendor involved because there's a lot of contents, or is this something I could just have my customer fill out a worksheet for and then I take care of it on my own, you know? So you just kind of want to be proactive in asking those questions. And probably the last like basic question that I would ask them is, do you have the failed item available for review? And when I say failed item, I mean if it was a supply line that leaked or if it was like some type of hose that broke, do you have the failed piece so we can send that in for subrogation? If you watch my videos, then you've probably seen my subrogation video. And that's really important as an adjuster because part of the way the insurance company can get some of that money back to make sure that they stay in business is by getting paid out on things that were not the customer's fault. So we try to look for subrogation opportunities on every claim. And if the customer still has the piece that failed, assuming that they got it fixed, that's like really good information to have. So then you can prepare your chain of custody agreements and things like that and get them over to the proper channels for review. Okay, so moving right along into fire claims. Fire claims can be tricky because there are several different ways that a fire can start. Fires can be started on accident. Fires can be started through, you know, electrical situations, like something that malfunctioned, and they can also be started on purpose. So I typically will start off a fire claim just asking if everyone is okay, just because they can be very traumatic. You never know if someone was lost in the fire. That information may not have been captured in the first contact with the insurance company, things like that. Someone may have had some smoke inhalation. Like it's all kind of different things that could happen with the fire. So I typically will start it off by just simply asking, is everyone okay? And God forbid everyone is not okay, offering condolences, well wishes, positive vibe, things like that. It's important to show that you are human and that you are here to take care of your customer. You know, even outside of like paying for the damages, sometimes they just need kind of like that shoulder, or just knowing they need to know that someone cares. So that's the first thing. I would say after that, simple, common question is, what caused the fire? So that's going to be kind of like a theme, you know, and all of your investigations, you need to know what exactly happened. There is a big difference between like a small kitchen fire. I have one right now where someone was cooking and I think they left some grease on and it just basically sparked and it ended up damaging some cabinets and like the stove where the food was being cooked. You also have situations where I have another one where there was an electrical fire in the garage. Like the person was doing some DIY stuff and I don't know exactly what happened, but it sparked and burned down the detached garage. So these are things that you're going to want to ask and you want to try to document. If they do not have the answer as to, you know, what caused it, because that happens too, where, you know, a fire could have started somewhere else and then it engulfed your home, whatever. If you don't have that information, you can always send out what's called a cause and origin vendor. Most insurance companies are going to have a few of these vendors on their list. Somebody that goes out to survey the scene most appropriately, like as close to the fire as possible, just so things don't get tainted. They'll come out to the scene, they'll survey to see if they can determine what happened or if they can rule out like arson and things like that. And also the fire department a lot of times will be able to do these investigations too if the person does not know where the fire occurred. And that brings me to my next question. It's important to ask them in situations like this if they have a fire department like report number. It's similar to like a police report. Like someone will come out and take this report from them and then just kind of like capture some information like while the person's memory is still fresh. And then sometimes it can give you insight into, if there were others involved, like, other neighbors, other properties, things like that. So ask them if they have a fire department like report number. You will typically see this when the fire is bigger. So if it's something that the customer couldn't put out themselves, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have to call the fire department, or maybe a neighbor saw something and they called the fire department to like preserve property. If you're talking about like a small fire, a lot of times they won't have that if it's something that they were able to put out on their own. So definitely a good question to ask, because if they have it, you definitely want to capture that number. If they have a copy of the report to provide to you, cool. Most insurance companies are able to order these reports through a third-party company. So make sure that you get the city that they filed this report with, and also the report number. Let's see. So another question that you want to ask on a fire, similar to a water loss, is if they do know what happened, and especially if this is something where it was like an electronic that caused the fire or something like that, ask them if they still have the piece available. This is another subrogation opportunity. You want to have this information up front so you can prepare your paperwork and bring with them, so you can take that item off site and send it to your subrogation department. So if they have that piece available, that would be great, because it'll give your insurance company an opportunity to recover any money if we end up having to pay this claim. And then also you want to ask them what items were affected. So just like with water, the fire would likely damage, some of the building materials, but then you also want to ask them, are there any, personal goods that were damaged? Was there any clothing? Was there any furniture, whatever, anything that was in the way of the fire that may have gotten damaged? You want to capture that. So then again, if you need to bring out vendors, or if it's something that the customer can handle on their own by just creating a list of the items that were damaged. All right, so the last type of claim that I want to talk about today are theft claims. Theft claims can be tricky because there are plenty of different reasons why things are stolen. There are plenty of different types of people that steal things, whether it be strangers, family and friends, things like that. So you definitely want to ask the right questions to make sure that you get the information that you need to solve your claim. First question that I like to ask on a theft claim is like the person's whereabouts. So I ask them, where were they when this loss occurred? There are situations where someone may have went to work, they come home and, notice that some items are stolen. There are situations where someone was out of town and, things were stolen, or there could be times where it could be someone like inside of their home. If they don't know exactly what happened, there could be a situation where maybe you had company over, so there was no forced entry. This person just stole some stuff while they were in your house. So different things like that, you just want to kind of like capture, find out kind of their lifestyle and what they were doing at the time when they discovered the loss. Also kind of figuring out what time of day it happened. Like, was this something that happened in the middle of the night? Was this something that occurred, like in broad daylight? Things like that. That'll give you insight, and then that'll also let you know if someone may have seen something. The other question I like to ask is, did you file a police report? So this a lot of times is going to be required by insurance companies, because if you are claiming like stolen items, those items need to be reported on the police report. So if the person has filed a police report, then you definitely want to capture that information. If they have not filed a police report, then you want to encourage them to do so. Another thing with thefts is that if you're saying that someone, committed theft, you're saying someone burglarized your home, that is a crime. So usually you can kind of determine if what someone's saying is valid by their willingness to complete a theft report. So make sure that that is taken care of, and if they have not, encourage them to do so you can get that number. In some cases, not filing a police report will hinder your coverage. So that's something that you want to definitely capture and get the report number if they have. If they have not, have them provide the report number to you once they've done so. The next question that I would like to ask during a theft claim is if they know the point of entry. So this is going to also like assist you with trying to figure out, if this was a break-in in someone's house, or if this was something that may have happened internally. So I'll ask like, were there any broken windows? Was there like forced entry through a door? Things like that. Also too, with like theft claims, you're a lot of times going to have like dwelling damage because someone had to have forced their way in. I've also had situations where the floor was damaged because someone dragged out a safe and it scratched up like wood flooring. So those are things that you're going to want to ask, are there any, issues with the home that you see that arose from the theft? Another question that you would want to ask is, do they have an alarm system? So this is important because if you have an alarm system, then typically if there is some type of forced entry, the alarm will go off. If you don't have an alarm, obviously you wouldn't have an alarm that went off, but then in some cases, now I don't know how all alarm systems work, but I know typically when they sense some type of issue, then the police are going to be called out, especially if you're out of town or something like that. So you want to make sure that you're getting information on that. And then if they do have an alarm system, find out what kind of alarm system it is, if they've had any contact with the alarm company, things like that. Let's see. I also will ask them, this is going to be like I don't even know what number we're on, but this is another question that I will ask them, if they have any cameras. So right now, like most homes or a lot of homes have like Ring cameras. So you'll be able to capture not only their front door or wherever they have the Ring camera, you can kind of see the surrounding area. So sometimes that'll help us, and also the police department, because you'll be able to see if someone pulled up in a vehicle. So what type of vehicle, maybe a plate number, things like that. And then also too, if their neighbors have a like Ring alarm system or some type of camera system there, that'll also help, because sometimes you might be able to capture information not only from your insured's home, but from someone else's camera if they're willing to show the footage. Also too, if there are businesses around, in some cases, those businesses have cameras that will be able to capture, things that have happened in the neighborhood. So those are good questions to ask, just because it might be a way to ID a suspect if it was a forced break-in. I would say the last question that I would ask after you kind of get through all of that is, what was stolen? Again, going back to them filing a police report, have them tell you everything that was stolen. If it's a lot of items and, maybe they haven't had a chance to survey their whole home, have them prepare a list for you, but also make sure that you're stressing to them that whatever you're telling the insurance company, you have told the police department. Because if we end up in a situation where we're having to replace these items, if they're ever recovered, then they would technically be the property of the insurance company. Or if the insured is keeping those items, then they would be required to pay back the money that they got for those items, because they can't get double paid, basically. So yeah, those are my questions. All right, so I hope that wasn't too long, and I hope I didn't go too fast, but I didn't want to make this video like crazy long and boring. I just wanted to give you some overview questions that are good for new adjusters. So each claim is different, and although I gave you a lot of questions that I asked, there are sometimes other questions come up, and the only way for you to be able to know to ask those questions is to listen to what you're hearing from your customer. I make it a point when I'm asking someone to explain to me what happened, I'm already thinking of questions in my head, but I'm also making sure to actively listen. Make sure that if there's something that you don't understand, if there's something that you wouldn't be able to explain to someone else, make sure that you're asking follow-up questions to clarify, to make sure that your investigation is spot on. The last thing you want, at least for me, is to have a superior go into your file or have your file audited and there's questions that you did not ask. Your job as a claims professional is to investigate and make sure that the insurance company is paying out on claims that are legitimate. So if there are any issues, if you suspect anything, whatever, you don't want to automatically jump to someone committing fraud per se, or you don't want to jump to, not covering the claim, but you want to clarify to make sure that your investigation is spot on. Make sure that when someone goes into your file, they're able to say, okay, I know exactly why you made this decision. I know exactly why this was covered. And if you can't see that in your file, make sure that you're asking additional questions to get that clarification. If you guys have any additional questions for me or just want to hear about other types of claims, let me know. I just wanted to do the 3 most common types of claims that we get in the homeowners department. And again, these are like starter questions. If you have specific items that you want me to touch on, definitely leave it in the comments. Feel free to also shoot me an email if you have additional questions at KeilaTbusiness@gmail.com. That is always in my description box, and I will put it in the video. I'll put it at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. If you did, definitely go on ahead and give me a thumbs up. Really helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already subscribed and you made it this far, please go on ahead and click that subscribe button below. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything from me. And with that being said, you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.
You mad that they don't salute you. I need a bag, size is super. They turned your bag, it's like I never knew you. Leave that.